If I talk like this works, right? Is this more for you to hear me, or is this for it to be recorded and posted on?
Both.
Yeah.
All right. Did we already pray? Did we pray? Let's keep praying. How about we'll say the joyful mysteries of the Rosary? That'll take up 20 minutes. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Our Lady, Seat of Wisdom, pray for us. St. John Bosco, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Today, all of you may know, is the feast of the dedication of St. John Lateran Basilica. Anyone that was at Mass who celebrated that. So St. John Lateran is the name of a church, not a person. But we would always say, this is seminary here, we would always joke on this day. There was this one guy that was in seminary that was very, didn't like things being done improperly, very, very ordered. We would joke, do a litany of saints, like St. Michael, pray for us, Our Lady, pray for us, St. John Lateran. No, a church can't pray for you. Kind of great joke. Well, I thought I would begin not with anything scriptural or significant. I thought it's always best to begin a talk. It's always best to begin a talk with a story about you. A funny story. I didn't tell him I was going to say this, so it just goes well. So, this is possibly my favorite story about my brother. I don't know if he's explained to you the intricacies of clerical fashion. Maybe not. You know where I'm going. So, what we are wearing right now is kind of like the working priest shirt. It's like a clip-on tie. We got to go get things done. The next step up is it's a nicer shirt, and it has studs. It's almost like a tuxedo shirt where you can clip on the collar. Okay. Step up from that is your cassock. Highest level, kind of like your white suit. What do you call it? White tail or whatever. Black tie, white tie though. This is even higher than black tie. Top level. When you get invited to a white tie dinner, you know you're going to the absolute top. So the white tie equivalent for a priest is called a rabbi, okay? And it's basically a shirt front. So what you have is you have your black shirt front, and then underneath you wear a white shirt with French cuffs. You look very, very formal. So, you understand the levels. We were going to my dad's retirement party at his office. So we were told to dress up. My brother was a priest. He decided he was going to dress top level, white tie. Had his rabbi on. And he looked very nice, because when we went out, he had this nice pea jacket, and he had his rabbi. Looked very good. We made it there. We were, of course, Vacarro tradition, running about 20 minutes late, which was a little awkward for my dad's retirement party. So everyone in his building was there and waiting, like, where is the family? Where's the family? So we come buzzing in, and we had to go through security. To go through security to get into this building, you had to take your jacket off. So everyone was taking our jacket off. I just had a suit on, so I took my jacket off. Then he went through security and took his jacket off. Now remember, he's wearing top-level clerical fashion. Took his jacket off. He was wearing the rattiest t-shirt. No white cuffs, no nothing. It was literally a shirt front. It looked like he rolled out of bed and just slapped on, like a Halloween costume. Just, bury whatever your dirty clothes underneath by putting like a nice sweatshirt or sweater on. It doesn't matter if your shirt's stuck in. So he had this beautiful shirt front and like like a dirty looking, it wasn't dirty, but it was a dirty looking t-shirt with holes in it. Underneath, and he's going through security trying to put this very nice face on. I'm a priest, he's wearing a shirt front that's not connected to anything, a short sleeve t-shirt with security guards. I'm like, what is this? All of us are looking, why would he wear those? And he had to put, he passed his jacket went through security, holes in the armpits. Hello, how are you? God bless you. I didn't put the jacket on. Wonderful. Clerical fashion. And so from then on, he's worn that. No false pretenses.
I've worn that one time in my life. That was the first and the last.
And the only.
You could not pick if the security guards would be there at this building. My luck.
Oh, it was wonderful. So I'm supposed to talk about discernment of your vocation. And I can share my story, and then I'll share some thoughts about vocational discernment. I'll try to keep myself on time. But you may have, I don't know if you didn't get someone down here, but if any of you went to Mass at St. Mary's, you may know that this week is National Vocations Awareness Week. So the church, the United States bishop have used this week, have nominated this week. I never understand how they choose these things, but first week in November, or whatever week we're in, is National Vocations Awareness Week. So thinking and praying about your vocation. How did I become a priest? What is the story of a vocation? I very much wish I could stand up here and say that I had this great and dramatic discernment of the priesthood. Every priest, I think, in some way, because we all get asked this question. It's just like when someone, how did you get engaged to your husband or wife? How did you propose? Everyone wants the best story, the most creative story. So every priest, of course, wants to be that priest that's like, I was a drug runner in Colombia. And the Blessed Mother appeared to me, and I was running from the military, and I just had this epiphany, and I gave it all up. And here I am, and I was dating a Venezuelan supermodel. No, I mean some of that is true for me, but and everyone wants to have a dramatic story because it's something that grabs people's attention and inspires. But I think, in a real way, most of us need to hear a normal story. A normal story. The normalcy, in a way, of a call is something that makes it maybe not as attention-grabbing in one sense, but it grabs in another way because it seems much more real. Reality is more beautiful than fantasy or fiction. Reality is always more beautiful. So, I am the youngest and greatest of the siblings, but and I went through Catholic school all the way K through high school, and I think one of the important things about growing up was the gift of my family. We were a Catholic family. Now we didn't, we weren't like praying 2 rosaries a night, and doing all these devotions, but we were a Catholic family. I remember the 3 most important things were that, we always went to Mass together. I don't know if you remember this. Mom kept a calendar of when we went to confession. So that when the family, I laugh when I look back at it. We went to confession, and Mom would say, it has been 1 month since our confession. We are going to go to confession. On the calendar, it was written all the way through high school. So we went to confession. It was important enough for my mom and my dad that we received God's mercy. That was important. And the third thing, I think, was that we had dinner together. We always had dinner together. No matter how busy the schedule was, we always had some time on a regular basis as a family. Talking about things, and that really, really helped. Because we heard, as I was growing up, I heard a lot of stuff at the dinner table that helped me realize how much God is working in the life of the people of my family, the situations that they were facing that I ultimately would face in my own life. Now, I don't know if my brother's ever told you his vocation story, but he felt a call to the priesthood at a very young age. I don't know if you know this, but his birthday is on the Feast of John Vianney, August the 4th, patron saint of priests. My brother, by God's grace, knew from a very young age that he wanted to be a priest. And it was not always a direct path towards that, but he didn't really ever lose that focus. That was an inspiration. We as siblings knew that Christopher wanted to be a priest. And when he left college, he went to seminary, and he was ordained a priest, which was beautiful to see. You entered seminary when I was in 6th grade. I remember that. For me, it was a little bit longer. I mean, I remember the faith was very much alive. I worked at the rectory, so I got to see the reality. I was an altar server. Working at the rectory, I got to see like the behind-the-scenes stuff that priests do. Like, they don't always wear clerics, and they show up late to things, and they get angry sometimes. And there was one priest that played video games all the time. So you got to see the reality of what was going on. That was nice. Like I said, the reality is something that attracts. Because if you just get attracted to something that's kind of a fantasy, and then you show up and you're like, this isn't how it really is, things fall apart. So I got to see the reality. When I was in high school, this is, I probably had inkling. I'll tell you, the things that really turned me off to being a priest were other people telling me I should be a priest. I'll tell you that. I'm sure some of the men, some women, you would be a great nun. You would be a wonderful priest. In retrospect, I'm sure that was helpful, but in the moment, I hated it. And the older the person was that said it, it made it even worse. So like 80-year-old women saying it after Mass, you would be such a wonderful priest. It's like, screw you. And I really didn't like it when I was in high school and my peers would say it to me. Oh, you're going to be the first American pope. Not only would that not happen, that wouldn't happen, but it was also a little, it's like, because you feel separate from people. If you're put in a category, if you're put in the religious category, then, I don't know, it just changes the dynamic. Oh, that's the guy that's going to be a priest. So those things made me not think about it. But then other things made me really focus on it. Things that were attracting me to the life of what a priest does, to the religious life, like the life, the spiritual life. I remember at least the one big thing, or the two big things, was on Holy Thursday, at the Mass of the Lord's Supper, all the priests of the parish would come together and can celebrate Mass. And I remember there was one year when I was serving that, and I really thought, wow, that's something. There's something there. There's some brotherhood there that unites these guys. And then in my last year of high school, Pope Benedict came to the United States. And I remember that for some reason, I wanted to go to Pope Benedict's Mass. Because the Catholic high school's got some tickets to go see the Pope at the White House, and some tickets to go to the Pope's Mass at National Stadium. I didn't care about the White House. I wanted to go to the Mass. And again, you saw kind of the brotherhood of all these priests. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of priests that were at this Mass, and there was just something about it. But again, I didn't want to make any decision. I didn't want to commit to anything. It was when I went to college that I actually was faced with the reality of what I was supposed to do. So I went to college, and the only reason I chose to go where I went to school was out of pride. I wanted to go to a better school than my siblings had gone to. I wanted to do it. And it was the best school that I got into, but it was the one I wanted. I wanted to go there because it was better than where my siblings went. And my first couple years were just terrible, so the Lord was, giving me recompense for that pride. But when I went to school, I was trying to figure out, everyone gets asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? So I was trying to think, well, I want to help people. I think that's a general idea for most people. I want to help someone. And so I was trying to think, what's the best way? Priesthood came out. I was like, well, we know we're not doing that. So what was the next best thing? What is an ordered life? What is something that has purpose and meaning and structure and kind of stands apart as something that is an example of service? Military. So I joined the ROTC. Well, teaching's good too. I'm not demeaning that. I joined the ROTC. Now, don't get too impressed, okay? I know I was in the ROTC for 2.5 weeks. So I did my time. And it was during that time, I can honestly say I have never heard never felt the Lord moving in my life so quickly or so clearly as when those 2 weeks that I was in the ROTC. it was as if he was shouting at me, Stephen, this is not what you are supposed to do. Now granted, I was in a new situation. College is stressful. The first year of college is particularly stressful. The first semester of the first year of college is really, really stressful. So all of those different things going on. But I really thought I should not be doing this. So I started thinking, what should I be doing? I want to help people, but I don't know how. But it's clearly not this way. So I went up and I spoke to one of the people that was in the ROTC, one of the top guys, and who is not Catholic. And I said, I think I want to leave. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I think I want to leave. And he said, just wait. Give it another week. Next week they have some guest speaker, and they didn't know who it was. We're going to have a guest speaker come in. Just wait. Maybe they'll say something that will help you kind of sort things out. I said, fine, okay. Now, of course, the guest speaker, they always, it's the military, so it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and you have to drag yourself out of bed. And so I walked over, and I was like, well, we'll see if this works. And who was the speaker? It was a priest. And it was Father Dustras, Father Mike Dustras, who was a Navy chaplain. And if any of you know him, he's like super into things. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, he's like shouting and yelling and wandering around. And I was mostly asleep, so I don't really remember what he said. But I remember walking out of there and going right over to that guy's office that had told me to wait. And I said, and this is the first person I ever said this to, I said, I think I want to leave, and I think I want to be a priest. Now, he wasn't Catholic, so he didn't know what a priest was. But, you don't need to understand, I'm just going to leave. So, and then, that later that day, I wrote my brother an email. Letter? I thought it was an email. I wrote him something, electronic or otherwise, and saying that I think I'm ready to start thinking about being a priest. Something, over time, this attraction has grown. I think I want to do something about it. And so I entered the discernment group. I still had to go through school. This is, 2.5 weeks into my first year. So, it wasn't like I was like, all right, off to Rome. I'm going to be a priest. I had a long time. I had a long time to think. I did my classes, friends. I was in the campus ministry. But I did the discernment. I started discerning, talking to priests, trying to pray more, go to Mass a little bit more often, more regular confession. And then in my last year, I was teetering on the brink of dating someone. I've been discerning. Anyone, maybe some of you have this experience. I'm discerning the priesthood, but she looks pretty good. And I'll discern marriage too. I can discern marriage with her. And so I was teetering on the brink of dating. I'm trying to remember how do we phrase it, because you're not dating, you're hanging out. That's what we're doing. We're hanging out. We're seeing each other. I think it was hanging out. Whatever. I think that's a little bit of seeing each other. So we were hanging out. We spent a lot of time down at school, and I was really thinking. I really felt that I needed to think about the priesthood, but I also really liked her. So it's like, what do I do? And I remember, because in the midst of that was the idea: if I were to go into seminary, should I go into seminary later, or should I go into seminary right after college? And I had many people telling me, including people I didn't know, coming up and telling me, oh, you heard you want to be a priest. You should work for a couple of years before you go into seminary. I'm like, and who are you again? And why do you care? But they would say, people want priests that have experience. They want priests that they can relate to. So you need to go work for a couple of years. Take some time. Don't jump into this. So I had all these things floating around. And I was seeing my spiritual director, and I was going to Mass and trying to figure things out. But I remember, again, back to Reverend Father, I asked him, and he said something, and it really did change how I viewed things, and shifted the course of what I did. He said, you feel this, Stephen, but you have to give God the first shot. You have to give God the first shot. If it doesn't work out, He's going to bless your decision because you were generous. And if it does work out, you've given God 2 more years of your life. What greater gift can you give? I said, well, I can't really argue with that. So we had what did Paltrow and her guy do? They mutually uncoupled, is the phrase. So we remained friends, but we moved on, and I entered seminary, filled out the application, and applied to the diocese, and was sent to Columbus, Ohio, that promised land of the state. And it was good. 6 years of seminary, and then here I am. I was ordained on June 10th. So, that is my story. And now I have, what, 15 minutes?
12.
15 minutes, and if we go over, you all just stay seated out of respect. I sat in traffic for 3 hours, you'll listen to me as long as I can. I think that's fair, right?
They're used to the homilies.
Oh, good. Your rear ends have been worked out well. Very good. So I thought, you have heard my story. My discernment is one example, and if you ask any priest, there is no two discernments that are the same. My discernment is different from my brother's. Our discernment is different from our other brothers. The three of our discernments are different from any of the priests at St. Mary's. That's the same way as any of the married people. Your parents, the way that your parents knew they were called to marriage, the exact story and journey that they took is different from every other couple. But there are still some similarities. So, my story is not going to be your story, but I want to share some principles or steps about discernment. Vocational discernment, certainly in general, but also, in particular, the discernment of a vocation to the religious life of the priesthood, okay? First of all, when we talk about vocations, I'm sure you guys have spoken about this either in the RCIA or you've heard it. Vocation means a call. Everyone has a vocation. Every single person that is created, has been created, or ever will be created has the same vocation. It is to be with God in heaven. It's what we call holiness. We are to become Christ-like. However we live and whatever path we follow, we are to be Christ-like. That is for everyone. Everyone has a vocation, okay? So that is always primary. The vocation, the call to holiness. What the church calls the universal call to holiness. So when you walk down the street and you see someone you've never seen before, you immediately have many things in common. One, that you're both human. You've been willed into existence by God, held in existence by God's love, redeemed by God's love, but also destined for the same place. Heaven. So, that's the first thing. Everyone has a vocation. But then there are also particular vocations. Ways that God wants us to live out that call to holiness. And a way that we need to, the word vocation means call. So there has to be, it's a dialogue. Someone is calling, and you are being called to something. So discernment is basically the process of realizing, listening, and then following. So, with that understood, I'll offer 3 basic steps for vocational discernment, but specifically vocational discernment to the religious life and the priesthood. First step, first hallmark, is an attraction. An attraction to the life. Okay? All of us, I would hope, are attracted to things in life. All of us are attracted to the life of marriage. I think everyone at least has a basic, natural desire to give themselves to someone. To love. To be a parent. Those things are all wonderful. But there is also the reality that people can be attracted to a supernatural life. That is what the religious life and the priesthood is. It is a supernatural calling. A calling from God. And now when I talk about an attraction, I'm not just talking about, I was attracted to being an NBA basketball player because I love the idea of making lots of money and you play a couple games and you travel the world. I am, 5'11"? So in no universe would I be an NBA basketball player except that all of them went on strike. Literally all of them went on strike. And then they wanted like a short, not really talented basketball player to play. And then I could step up. But I had an attraction to that where I was like, oh, that would be kind of cool to go do that. And I've never thought about it again. I'm talking about an attraction to the religious life, to ladies to being a religious sister or a cloistered nun, men to being a religious brother or a priest, an attraction. Where you have looked in your heart at the life that is being lived, at a person who lives that life and saying, I might want to do that. There is something about how they live and what they live for, who they live for, that I find attractive, that I want, that I possibly would think about doing. And it's something, distraction is not just like, oh, hey, that's cool, look at the, they get to wear black all the time, isn't that so stylish? But an attraction to the life of sacrifice, the life of service, but then also the idea that this is an attraction that has weathered the test of time. It's come up at different occasions. Other people see that you might be attracted to that. Other people see that you might be good at that, have the qualities of someone living that life. Something that has stood the test of time when it comes in prayer. It's popped up when you were in a state of grace. That's something significant. Something that you've noticed over time, or something that is particularly strong. If there is an attraction, especially an attraction to something as supernatural as the priesthood or the religious life, that is something worth listening to, because that does not come to every person. If there is an attraction, there should be some further work. Okay? So the first step is the attraction. The second step is speaking to someone about it. Okay? As I said, a vocation is a dialogue. It is a call from God to his children. And the children have to listen and then figure out what is going on. In this step of the process, a person who has felt the attraction has now garnered the courage to speak about it. It's kind of like when you want to date someone. You have, you like them, you look at them, you've gone out for coffee, and then it becomes Facebook official. You have put it out in public. People know this is something that you're doing. You have started to speak about it, right? And you don't just date someone blind, right? You date someone by kind of consulting, like talking to your guy friends or your girlfriends, like, what are some things that we can do together? Where are good places to go? Do we go to Carl's, or do we go to Mickey D's and get cheap stuff? I know my brother's answer in it. Or the diner. Drive to the diner. But you talk about it, and you ask for advice of people who have lived the life, who have done what you want to do, and have walked where you want to walk. So speaking about it. So where does that enter in for the discernment of the vocation to the priesthood or to the religious life? You need to reach out to someone who knows how to discern. Someone who is living the life, someone who has discerned that life, and then you submit yourself to a conversation with that person to try to figure out what it is that you're hearing. Because, I'm going to say this to you because this was my experience when I was in college. You all, and people like you, have so much going on. Like, all the things going on, it seems like sometimes, right? Clubs and, campus ministry, and then your family, and your friends back home, and all of your tests, and the stress level, and sport. You have so much going on. And it's very difficult in the midst of all of the noise, and not to mention, your phone, you got text, and Instagram, and, all of that stuff, music, and all of that noise. Sometimes we feel like we're on our own. Like, what am I hearing? What exactly am I hearing? I like this, but where do I go from here? To reach out to a third party who has lived the life to help navigate with you. That's really, really, really important. And to submit yourself to that person, because they who are a little bit removed from your situation can help you figure out what God is saying. And to actually listen to what they're saying. It's not enough, as you all know in your own life, it is not simply enough to say something like, where do we want to go for a date? And then to just walk away without ever hearing the answer. Just saying that you want to date this person effectively, just saying it, not waiting for an answer to get guidance, and then following that guidance if it's good. What good is that? So the idea of speaking about it is submitting yourself to someone who has lived the life, and then listening to the counsel that they give. That will be so important. And then the third step, I'm doing pretty good. Third step, that clock is fast, by the way. We're going with my watch. The third step, so attraction, speaking about it, the third step is very important. It is the choice. Now, I truly wish, when it came to discerning a vocation, any vocation, marriage, dedicated, I truly wish that in every situation, the Lord would dispatch an angel or a saint or the Blessed Mother to just say, you want to know what? To save you time, I'm just going to tell you what you need to do. All right? This is just going to save a lot of stress. You don't have to do as much praying. And, we can allocate our graces to the parts of the world that need it, and you can just know what you're supposed to do. I wish that were the case. I also wish it were the case that when you were given the option between, as I was, continuing my hanging out with the girl or going to seminary, I really wish that the true option between it was like, Stephen, either you can become a priest or you can become a war criminal. Where the choice is super obvious. It's like, I guess I'll be a priest. But the amazing thing about our God is that He created us to be free. He does not force us to love. He does not force us to make a choice. He will not force us to go to heaven. Because if He were to force, we wouldn't actually be human. Right? He would take away our choice, and then we would become robots. And then what was the point of all of this? Our God lets us be free. And so when He wants us and offers a life of happiness and holiness, He gives us a choice. He really gives us a choice. And He usually gives us a choice not between something that is so obviously evil and wrong and something that is very clearly good. Because, what kind of choice would that be? He gives us a choice between goods. Do you want to be living the beautiful life of a married person with kids? Or do you want to live the beautiful life of service in the priesthood or the religious life? A choice. Where we have to stand before God and we have to trust the things that He has been telling us, trust the people that He has put in His life, and then we make a choice. We make a choice. And this is difficult because I'm only a few years older than you all, so I don't know if we're technically part of the same generation, but I think the things that plague my generation are the ones that plague yours. Commitment is very, very daunting, right? I don't want to sign up to go to the Christmas tree because in 1 month, between now and then, something else better might come up, right? I'll wait till the last minute to sign up. I'm not going to, I don't want to say that we're dating. That's too strong of a term. We're kind of hanging out. I always want to leave my options open. I want to leave my options open. What does that look like in the discernment of the religious life and the priesthood? I've been thinking about the priesthood for so long, but I think I should keep dating this person. The priest has told me that I should probably stop dating to get a little bit of distance so I can actually pray whether or not I'm called to the celibate life. But I feel that I need to date because I feel I can discern both dating and marriage 100% and celibacy 100%. I can discern both of them at the same time. I am better than all other humans in the world. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the first, and it's going to work great. We have to make a choice. And I'm going to tell you, practically speaking, you cannot discern 100% anything, any call, any vocation, if you're trying to balance multiple different discernments going on at the same time. You're never going to be 100% listening to anything. So, it was hard. I'm going to tell you, sometimes the choice, as beautiful as it is hard. Holiness, at times, is hard. That is why we call saints heroes, because they sometimes have to make the heroic decision of temporary denial of self and my own desires in order to do what is truly good, what is truly best. And so to say to that girl, I really need to take time off because I need to start thinking about the priesthood, that was possibly one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had in my life. But look where I am now. So we have to make a choice. God will offer, and then He will wait. He will not force anyone to be married. He will not force anyone to become a nun. He will not force anyone to become a priest. As much as we wish He would do that, just ordain me. Just, magically pick one of the 7 billion congregations of women that are out there and send me there. I don't care which one it is. Find the perfect guy for me. Find the perfect girl for me and just show them to me. You do the work. And God says, no. No. You follow the way and the path that I have been leading you on. And then you, by my grace, you make a choice. Because this is your life. And you will live it with me. I'm not going to make you live it. So those are the 3 steps. I will offer some spiritual things about discernment, okay, for everyone. Any vocation, but certainly the vocation to the priesthood, religious life. Number 1, you cannot discern effectively if you are in sin. Because sin always clouds and it always kills. It stifles the movement of the Spirit. And so, frequent confession is absolutely essential to any life of holiness. And when I say frequent, I mean once a month. Once a month, that's a good benchmark. Once a month, how about we say that? That way, you are constantly replenished, not only by God's mercy, but by the strength it takes to be a saint. That's what the sacrament offers. Cleansing and strengthening. Second thing is something that you all do here. A relationship with our Lord in the Eucharist. Feeding upon the source of life. Wisdom. Wisdom itself. If he is in you, he will not abandon you. If he is in you, you will be able to hear his voice because he is oh so close. And then spending time in silence with him in the Blessed Sacrament. Listening in the silence, in prayer. And the third thing, not really a spiritual point, but the third thing is, you all have so many things in your life that stress you out. Your vocation should not be one of them. The call to whatever life of holiness that God is calling you to is not meant to be like, a corn maze where there's like, oh, the priesthood, oh, wrong turn, where you're just constantly, I need to get it right, I need to get it right, I have to get it right, and I have to get it right now, and the only thing I think about is getting it right and finding my vocation. You don't need to stress about it. You pray about it. And you do the work that God is calling you to do, and you live the life. You have friends, you have fun, you pray, you do acts of service, spend time with your family. But the more if you stress, then instead of being clouded by sin, you're going to be clouded just by the stress. So don't stress. Easier said than done. But I would say this from my own personal experience. There were days where it's like, oh my gosh, priesthood marriage. And it's like, wow, I could marry her. No. Don't stress. That's the best way. Don't stress. Okay, that is it. Do I take questions?
Sure. Does anyone have any questions?
I've answered. I have offered the definitive treatment on vocational discernment.
You're like St. Thomas.
I'm like St. Thomas. Who's my favorite sibling?
Yeah.
Can't answer that. All of them equally tied for first. Everyone equally tied for first. You would answer the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah?
You
We
may
don't lie. We don't lie, we're priests. Yes, that's right. Well, I guess I could use this time to share other family stories. When I was, this is a statement, this is not an opinion, this is a statement of absolute dogmatically defined fact. The greatest television show on TV, that's where television shows are, of course, is Cops. C-O-P-S, all capital letters. It's currently on Spike, used to be on Fox. Longest running reality television show in the world. Well, maybe in the United States, but probably in the world. Greatest show. So, as part of my desire to serve, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be an ambulance driver, which is not a real job. I just wanted to drive the ambulance and turn the sirens on. So I graduated from that to wanting to be a police officer because I watched Cops. when I was a kid, he would watch Walker, Texas Ranger, with Chuck Norris. Terrible show, but very fun. And he would watch Cops, but, because those were both on Saturday nights. I was not allowed to watch either of them, so I would hide in a different movie, listen to the two shows. So I wanted to be a police officer. So what did we do when I was in high school? Is we decided that we would.
It was before you were in high school.
Was it before I was? Okay.
Right.
Well, it was. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. I was younger. In order to grow as brothers, we decided that we would pretend to be police officers as we drove around. So what did we invest in? Well, we invested in a voice changer, right? You know, like those, you know, like you click it on, monster, alien, and then maybe they don't have them anymore. But we used to do that. So we would, and then we have call signs like they do on Cops. You were 432, and I was 404. We would drive around and report to each other crimes. He had a bike light, which was, it's totally illegal to have that type of thing, like pretend to be a police officer. We could have gone to jail. Fortunately, it ran out of battery. That was good. And then, as is the case with him, we always ended at McDonald's. Or Roy Rogers was a new place that we went to. So that was a family thing that we did. Just the two of us. Every once in a while, we would invite other priests too. We didn't always describe it. We didn't always describe. One priest we described it as patrol duty. I think every other time we figured that would sound kind of weird, so we changed the name. Yes, that was answering a not question. Yes.
Do you still do this?
We do not. We talk about doing it, but ultimately we just end up at the diner anyway. So how we get there, we don't always go over together. And but although we do, when we're out driving, we sometimes call each other and say, "There's a car speeding in front of us." We're like, "We should just call the real police. Why are we calling instead of each other?" So we're still fighting crime together. Any other questions about my family or about the sermon? I can't offer too many reflections on being a religious sister because I've not been there. But yes, sir.
So, what really made your decision like this? Like when you became a priest, were you like, now I'm a priest? Were you like? The day before, how did you feel about becoming a priest? Like, did you know?
That's a very good question. One thing you might not know is that a lot of the things that you think about in entering the clerical state, you know, the promise of celibacy, the promise of prayer, the promise of total obedience to the bishop and to our authorities, a lot of those promises are made, all of those promises, in fact, are made at our diaconate ordination. So the day before, I mean, all of these things kind of hang heavy, just as if you ask anyone that you know that's married. Different things go through people's minds the day before they make a huge decision. It is a life-changing, life-altering, and in the case of the priesthood and the diaconate, a soul-altering reality. So what was going through my mind? Now I don't know what went through your mind, but I remember when we were at the cathedral, there's like this little back room where the altar boys dress. They preserve it for the guys that are getting ordained. So it was the three of us. And they had us get there at some ungodly early hour for, I have no idea what reason. We're there for like 3 hours just standing and stewing in our nervousness with each other. We don't have anything to say to each other. You know, like there aren't enough prayers to say during that time and we're not concentrating. So we just kind of just walk in circles and nervously drink water to maintain the fast. But I remember thinking, all of us, we kind of thought about this. It is a strange thing to know that literally in one moment, you go from one state of life to a new state of life with eternal consequence. You go from being a deacon to being a priest, and immediately after that moment, you're able to confect the Eucharist. You're able to forgive sins. And it's not like you could practice that before. I mean, like I can say the words of Mass, you all can say the words of the Mass, ain't nothing happening. I say the words of the Mass, my brother says the words of the Mass, not because we're like super holy or because, we're better, men are better than women or I'm better than you. It is simply by God's gift that we now have not this authority, although it is an authority, but this power given by God to aid other people on their way to holiness, to get people to heaven. And to stand in a room and kind of just think about that, like, oh my gosh, I was 27, and you have people come. One of the weirdest things, well, two weird things about being a priest, I'll tell you this. My parish is right near where I grew up, in Alexandria.
I mean, Annandale's only like a 2-minute drive away.
Anandale. Thank you for that amazing point, which is so true. To be clear, we are in the Alexandria mailing address, so the postal code is different from the actual geographic area, but we don't need to bicker about this. The two most, it's not, this is getting away from your question, this is going past coordination. The thing that I was thinking about that I was most nervous was hearing confessions. And I was thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a priest and there's no way to stop this train. In not a bad way, it was just like, wow, I have been brought here and we were counting down the time. It's like, okay, the ordination's in an hour, it's in 30 minutes, and we were thinking, as we're walking out the door, and we just looked at each other like, in 20 minutes we are going to be priests. And it's just like, and then you just kind of go into autopilot, and then you emerge from the church, and like, I'm a priest! So, the two things that were disconcerting. My parish, where I am right now, Church of the Nativity, which you in the back have been there one time. Since we've garnered that she's been there one time, has anyone else been there one time, or 2 times? 3 times? 4 times?
Been there.
I want you to know that you're all welcome to be at my parish. You will be welcomed with open arms. But going there, I'm 20 minutes from St. Michael's. Well, the first thing is, it is incredibly humbling, but also, frankly, I'm going to be totally honest, a little bit weird, to be addressed as father by people who fought in World War II. They are 70 years older than I am, and they are calling me father and asking for my advice and spiritual counsel. Not because I'm Stephen Vacarro and I'm really, really smart and I went to seminary in Columbus, Ohio, and it is because I'm a priest. That is why they want it. It is not because of the Stephen Vacarro, but because of the Father in my name. That's very humbling and disconcerting. The other thing, more close to home, is the fact that I'm only I'm just 20 minutes from St. Michael's. People that I went to elementary school with, like we did pranks in the bathroom at St. Michael's, and like flushed toilet paper down the urinal, and skipped class together. People that I went to school with. Not only do I have them coming up and calling me father, I have their parents. Like people that disciplined us and got us in trouble and like served us, made us hot dogs when I went over to play video games at their house. They're calling me father. That's another humbling thing, but it's just very, for example, last week, my 6th grade teacher came up and was like, Stephen, how are you? And I'm like, hi. I was like, oh, it's so great to see you. In my mind, I'm like, this is really weird. Things like that. Disconcerting. Wonderful. They're wonderful. I could not have planned that, but it's weird. Good weird.
Time for one more question.
One more question. Let's make it good. Not that those weren't. I'm sorry. Please.
Okay, so what's your favorite part about being a priest?
Ooh, favorite part. There are many. I'll start alphabetically. Obviously the sacraments. You can't undervalue. Without hesitation, the best part is the sacraments. Again, This is where no one is worthy to be a husband or a wife. No one is worthy to be a parent. No one is worthy to be a priest or a nun. No one is worthy. None of us are worthy enough to be alive. We're not worthy to be Christians. We're not worthy to be students. Everything is a gift. We have to live a life of gratitude. And the importance of that is such that why we go to Mass on Sunday and why the name of the sacrament, the heart of our church, what we do every week is called Eucharist, is because our entire life needs to be an offering of thanksgiving. So the sacraments, performing the sacraments for the good of others, to see how God can change people's lives through something as simple as the prayer of absolution, something as simple as the prayers of the consecration, anointing of the sick, how that prayer of healing for people changes lives. And then probably the other really cool thing about being a priest, and I know this is the case for being a religious sister, and it's different for people that are married. This is an aspect of the life that is wonderful, and you can see demonstrably this is different between the vocations. When I walk into a room, people, now this can be a negative thing, I can walk into the room and people look at me, well, when we walk into rooms together, people look at us like we have the plague. Oh, priest. They'll exercise us. We have to flee. But then, and he has been, when you go, if you go, he goes to the Metro Diner a lot, obviously. But we have had several occasions when I've been there, when he'll gather around a group of priests, and there'll be, 2 tables over, there will be a table full of police officers. No one looks at the police officers. I mean, they're dressed weird too. They have a life of service too. Of course, they have guns, so maybe that's a little daunting. But people will come up and just they'll say something nice, like, oh, what parish are you from? Or they'll say and sometimes they'll just say weird things. They will just come up and say weird things. There was a guy that came up and just said no hello, or no excuse me. He came up and stood next to us and goes, do you know what the name of the Holy Roman Emperor that had to stand outside a castle naked begging for penance was? Yeah, I know. And we're like, in what universe is this from? And, but of course, you can't just be like, back off, weirdo. We're priests, of course we love. And so it's like, oh, that's a really interesting question. Anyone here know what that is? And he didn't give the answer, he just walked away. And then he came back later in the dinner and said, I can't even remember what the name was. Henry IV, it was Henry IV. I can't believe you guys didn't know that. And then he just left. Oh, okay. So sometimes that brings, but as a priest, and as a religious sister, by the gift of the sacrament that we have received, or in the case of the sisters, the sacramental, the vows that they've taken, that they have received, we are part of people's lives. Part of people's lives in the most intimate of ways, because we are priests and because we are religious. And so when I walk into a room, assuming that it's a room, even a room where there are not faithful people, this is the case. We are people that someone wants to speak to. We can offer a word of counsel. We can tell people that we will pray. They want to show us their children so that we can give them a blessing. They want us to know that they went to Catholic school. They want us to know what parish they went to. They want us to know that they're struggling with something. We are part of their life. Not because of who I am as Stephen Vacarro, but because I am a priest. And this has hit me as a profound thing. And one of the favorite things about being a priest. If I were Mr. Vacarro and I walked into the room, I would be ignored. I might be the dad of a family and I am the world to my kids and the people that I know. But when I walk in as a priest, I am father to everyone in that room. The same with the sisters. I've seen this happen. If a woman walked into a place, just walking around the store or something, you would be ignored, basically. You're just a regular shopper, you get ignored. But when a sister walks into anywhere, people start acting super weird. Just because, just really, oh my gosh, we didn't know you still existed. And they'll actually say that, which is, a beautiful statement of faith, but it's a little bit offensive. But, like, they will come up, this is something I've seen very often. Mothers will come up and want the sisters to hold their babies. Now, a lot of times people say, like, oh, you've given up being married, you've given up being a mom. But I have seen so many times sisters presented children just because moms want them to be held and cradled by a spiritual mother. No other woman in the universe is that going to be the case, and it's simply because that sister is a sister. We are treated different because God has set us aside to be for everyone. And that is, beside the sacraments, of course, second to the sacraments, that aspect of the life of being for everyone and being part of everyone's life. That, I would say it's beyond words, but clearly I just spoke for 10 minutes about it. Okay, I'm over time.
Thank you for those fine words of wisdom. Many though they were, they were very good, and you did a fine job with that. And I needed to put in that it was in 6th grade that we started the patrol duty, because it would be very weird if you were in college and I was a priest. We were driving around with a bike light and calling one another, so that was well before that time. And I have bought some new t-shirts since the event in question. Let's pray. And then we have confessions. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As was in the beginning, is now, and shall be, world without end. Amen.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. We thank again the ladies from Birthright for the...
You guys didn't meet, so they're out there.
Yeah,
They're
we got here
in
the
the
dinner.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming. Confessions now. Hopefully the iPads have made it around. I'm seeing the adoration sheet dead in the middle of the table there. Hopefully filled also. So have a wonderful night. And what is for dessert?
We have red velvet cake, cupcakes, key lime pie, pumpkin